understanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
And welcome to Thursday Twilight Show with me, Chris Heath-Robinson, and Mo Oszoy. So we're on every other week, and our focus is beyond the classroom. So every show we talk about the difficulties, the challenges, and the opportunities that are available outside the classroom, extracurricular and supercurricular activities as well. So every week we'll be bringing in guests, we'll be speaking about kind of key issues with that and giving some hints and tips on how to bring that into the classroom and outside of the classroom as well. And that's the theme of our show. So welcome. Today we've got a very special show. So firstly, we're live. You can see our faces for the first time, I think, Mo. So you can actually see what we look like. And the reason for that is we've got some very special guests today. So as well as Mo, we've got Joe and Danielle from Madame Tussauds, and we've got Emily Weston, who's also a teacher, joining us today and to answer some of the questions that we've got focused on that theme of extracurricular and immersion outside the classroom. So what we're looking at today is Madame Tussauds and how they offer a unique and immersive learning opportunities for the classroom and for education, and how we can bring that into everyday learning and how we can bring that into education as well. So let's just go around to begin with. So if we want to introduce ourselves, Joe, do you want to start with you?
Sure. Yeah. Hello, I'm Joe Kinsey, and I'm the studio manager based at Madame Tussauds in London. A little bit about my background. So I trained in hair and makeup, special effects wig making, but I had a special interest in portraiture as well. So whilst I was working early days as a makeup artist, something hit me. I thought, actually, I could work at Madame Tussauds, and then I can combine everything that I've learned. So way back for email, I think I wrote in actually. Yeah, I did. I wrote a letter. And then I was fortunate enough to get a job as a hair inserter, which means I sat there for 7 hours a day, putting hair into the wax heads one by one. And then I worked up through various roles into a supervisory role. And I was doing that in figure production, as we call it, for 18 years or so. And then I had my children and thought, well, actually, what else can I do? So I jumped ship a little bit, still with Merlin Entertainments, but I went to work for Lego. So I managed Lego production. So guys building Lego models. Did that for 3 years, achieved what I wanted to do, got them in a place where they were they were very happy and they were productive. But what I really missed was my craft. So I had hiatus from Merlin for a little while, worked out in the industry again. I worked in hair, actually taught at London College of Fashion. I taught hair there. I worked in creative project managing for theming in retail, film and TV. And then in 2019, a new role came up based in Madame Tussauds London as studio manager, and that's where I am today. I have a team of 12 artists, so we run the attraction. We make sure every morning that we are walking around and every figure is to their brief and has talent would expect to look, and theming as well. And then when it comes to opening time, I hand over to Danielle.
Fascinating. I'm intrigued by how long it would take you to thread a whole head of hair.
4 weeks.
4 weeks just for one
4
head.
weeks. Minimum.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by that as well. But for
yeah, could you do a job there? And of course, Danielle from Madame Tussauds.
Hi. Yeah, I don't have as cool a job as Joe, but an important one nonetheless. So I'm the head of operations here at Madame Tussauds London. So I am responsible for you when you come and visit us. So from the moment you purchase your ticket to the moment you leave your gift shop, you're kind of in my domain. So I'm here to make sure that you and my team give you the best customer service possible. You enjoy your visit, you are kept safe whilst you're here, and you spend a little bit of money on your way out, and you've had a really good time. So yeah, I started back with Merlin when I was 17, and I worked as a host selling tickets at Thorpe Park. and absolutely fell in love with this crazy industry that we know and love. And it's an amazing industry once you get into it, and it's beautiful. And did that for 7 years, working across Thorpe Park and Legoland, and then bounced actually into live theatre and did theatre for 8 years, behind the scenes, not on stage. And did that for a few years, and then came back into Merlin 3 or so years ago now to be the head of operations here at Madame Tussauds.
Great stuff. And last but not least, Emily, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for 11 years now. 9 of those were in primary school, predominantly in year 6, but I have actually gone to secondary. So I'm now in secondary education. And I've always had a big passion around transition, so between primary and secondary, and that includes careers and getting children ready for like the world beyond the classroom as well. So
wow,
short and sweet, but that's my background.
Great stuff. Thanks ever so much for that. So yeah, as I said at the start of the show, we're going to have a talk today about Madame Tussauds, about unique immersive experiences outside the classroom, how we can get involved with that in education. So Joe and Danielle, I'll start off with a question for you. So the kind of origins of this, and we got Marie Tussauds and her story and background kind of what she did. How does her legacy today continue to inspire the work that you do? And how can stories like her motivate young people, do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, certainly when I joined the brand, she was possibly another reason why I did join the brand. I didn't know a great deal about her when I joined, but I knew that she was a real person. Lots of people don't realize Marie Tussauds was real. But the fact that she left France in her 40s to come to the UK in the early 1800s, and then tour for 33 years with her figures. Whether she spoke English before, don't know. But I just think, I guess back then, the 40s were perhaps considered older for a lady as well. The fact a woman got up and did that, I don't know, she was a real force, I think. And then she settled here in Baker Street in 1835. But then she also, it's a relationship she created. So the royal family, we still have a great relationship with the royal family today, and she started that. But also her craft. So we still use some of the same techniques that she did. So as I talked about earlier, inserting the hair, she would have inserted the hair, painting the wax, sculpting, molding. We still use quite a lot of the same techniques. Some of them have developed a little bit with 3D and digital, but we do like to use that USP that we use the same techniques. And then she didn't just make the figures, she did her marketing, she created her own guidebook, she sold tickets. She did the whole show.
Yeah,
so
she's a great entrepreneur. If you think about a female entrepreneur, she's someone to absolutely look up to. She has done so much in her lifespan, and the fact that we continue that ethos here is quite strong. We even reference a phrase, what would Marie do if we ever get stuck? Because it's something where you just kind of try and find that drive in you to see if she could have done it back in the day, like what can we do now? So I know it sticks with a lot of us here, is if we can do it, if we do her proud, we'll be very happy.
Great. A good introduction to her and what she's done, and the legacy that still continues today. So incredible stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. Just coming to you, Emily. Me and Chris have been on the show for a few weeks now, and we bring that sixth form college perspective quite a lot to this question. But it's something we want to ask you, and it's great to actually have you because you've been at sort of lower school, and we together, I think as a 3, we've got all of the age groups covered on this. Why do you think it's important for young people to explore careers beyond the classroom? And why is it that, because you mentioned in your intro, one of the things you mentioned was you're very passionate about that. So why is it that you do you think that's really important for us to, as educators, give our students that experience?
I think beyond the classroom, we don't know what careers that children are coming into contact with. And I think a lot of what they see is just what they see online, or what their family members, work as or have as roles. And I think if we don't show them all the options that are there in schools as a career that's out there, then how do they know where to direct their schooling? And I think it gives it more purpose, and it gives it more reason for them to do it. And I think we can also give more context. So even the children that I teach that say, oh, I want to be a footballer or I want to be a singer, they don't understand the actual work that goes into that. Well, if you can't read properly and you don't understand some basic law. Maybe you won't be able to understand your contract because yes, your agent does that, but you need to understand that as well. And it's kind of giving them that further context as to what they see as, I don't want to say easy careers, but they do, don't they? They all think they're going to be the next David Beckham. But it gives them that context of actually you still have to work really hard. Football academies will make you do your schooling, and we can give some context to that, I think, that maybe they wouldn't get somewhere else.
Yeah, and absolutely. And some of the, it used to be footballers and things when we were younger, but now I hear a lot of them want to be YouTubers. Also, I surprisingly quite a lot want to be accountants and lawyers. And when I ask them the question, why, they often can't give me an answer. Oh, it looks interesting, looks cool, but they haven't actually had that experience to actually go, I can fully commit to this career knowing and knowingly and with the experience that it's given me. So from that perspective, I totally agree with you that yes, they're grown up with all of this information online, but a lot of the time, A, where is that information coming from, and B, with what intentions? And online can make, we all have social media, we only put our best selves on there, but actually the working world, there are ups and downs, and I guess that's the important bit as well. And sort of coming to you, Joe and Danielle, how do immersive environments such as those at Tussauds and school trips to your venues, how do you think they help expand the awareness of different careers? Because we've talked about the sort of the classical normal routes, if you like, but what you do is perhaps ones that they don't see much of. So how can coming on a trip potentially or engaging with Madame Tussauds one way or another, how can that help young people become more aware of what's out there for them?
Yeah. No, I think for me to answer the question, I think back to how I started my career, and I visited Fort Park as a guest when I was like 14 or 15, and something sparked in me there that, oh, I'm really interested in how does this place work? Like, how do you get a job? What happens? And very luckily I grew up around the local area, so I could get a job and work there as a 17-year-old in college. And that's where it kind of started for me, learning about it. And, over the years we held schools weeks where a lot of school children came for their reward trip. And you could see that starting to spark with a lot of those children there of, oh, I'd love to work here one day. I want to operate a ride. And you're like, yeah, you can absolutely do this. So I think there's an absolute importance of getting people to these types of attractions to show there is another world outside of, say, accounting or marketing. But to really phrase that, you can work in this industry and work in marketing and accounting. It's just which road you choose to go down.
Sure. Yeah. And I think within our attraction, there is a small behind the scenes section, which could inspire, you know, when, maybe not everybody walks up to a figure and thinks, actually, how is that made? But it would be nice to think that some children probably do look at it and think, actually, how is that made? So we do have a kind of bijou behind the scenes section, which is great because actually that's got Ronaldo on there featuring his sitting. So maybe they would get engaged at that point to think about that. Very occasionally we'll have VIP behind the scenes tours, and every time we bring somebody to the studio, we have to leave them for a few seconds because it's a bit of, oh my gosh, they've never seen so many hands and heads and body parts. And then the questions come then, and people don't know what goes into making a figure until they see it, like the hair, for example, or the painting. We take a week to paint a head, for example, building up in very fine oil layers. So I think hopefully seeing that, then they would go away and think, actually, there is a world where you can do something a little bit different. There is a world where you can be a hair and makeup artist. That's how I started. And it wasn't until a little bit into starting that I realized that this existed and was perfect for me. They might think about going into film and TV. I have lots of ex-colleagues and friends that work in film and TV, and our skills are very, very similar, actually the same. So it's painting on silicone, painting on wax. So actually somebody came to me today in my team and said, I've got a job on a film. I mean, I can't talk about what it is, but it's really exciting. So it's a very exciting industry. And I just hope that children realise that they can have a creative, kind of unusual career as well as being a singer or a YouTuber or footballer.
Yeah, and we were saying that we're both parents, so it's amazing to bring our children here and they get to see the behind the scenes, or they get to see us in action. We were lucky enough to work on a figure launch together, and both our sons came to that figure launch and they saw Joe's side and then they saw my side, and it was just eye-opening for them to see how it comes together to launch said figure. And that was really a special moment for both of us, I think, having them both watch us work.
Absolutely. And Emily, a question for you, and we're obviously talking to Madame Tussauds today, and working with schools and things like that. Can you give an example or some examples of local businesses, external organisations that you've used, that you've partnered with to inspire young people about their careers?
Yeah, so I actually ran a careers week, not last year, the year before, at the school I was with, and we were really lucky that we've got some really good businesses that are quite local. So Dyson, they were local to us. We had a parent that worked there, they came in. A parent worked at Cadbury's, they came in. A parent had led the building of Brentford Football Club, they came in. So we actually utilised all the parents that we had and the community that were around us to come in and lead a careers week. And then each job that they came in and spoke about, we created an activity around that linked to the curriculum. So, for example, we had an architect come in, and we had all of them using, I'm going to butcher what it's called, is it CAMS they use online, where it's like an online design program? CAD, that's it, thank you. CAD. And they use that to create the like an ice cream shop that she'd said that she'd previously designed. So we tried really hard to link it with as many different careers as possible, that we had somebody to come in and speak about, so that it did feel like something real, it did feel like something that they could do. And what was special for me, my parents came in as well. So my dad was in the RAF and my mum is still in HR, and they both came in and did a talk as well, so they could see it not just their own families but beyond, and how it can impact their lives, really, I suppose.
Great. And just kind of following on from that, Emily, I know, Mo, you've done quite a lot as well with your role, and that's kind of why we do the show and the theme of the show on these Thursdays around engaging with employers. Do you want to talk about some of the key things that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. And previous listeners may have heard us mention this a couple of times. So there's an event that we do. We've got a various number of things. And actually, it was really interesting, Joe, and you mentioning how your children come. And I guess that kind of links back to why we do these things, right? Because if you know someone who works in a particular industry, it can be easy. That can be your door in to get a sort of glimpse of their world. But actually, we work with a lot of students that don't, unfortunately, have that opportunity. So one of the things that we do, and it's something we've done twice this year, and we try and do it twice a year, is what we call the business breakfast. Now, in essence, it's a networking event where we see, because of the subjects that we teach as business, economics, accounting, law, they're quite professional sort of subjects, if you like. And what we sort of do is bring employers and students into the same room, and they network as if they are colleagues. So how we've all been to networking events where we go and meet people from the industry, and we get students to do that. And the main purpose of that is for them to engage with employers. And actually, my biggest thing is so they can see that they're human beings, because we have this from a young age that, oh wow, you're this, you're that, or you must be sort of superhuman almost. I've got to talk to you in a certain way. And I think my biggest takeaway from those events is when they engage with these professionals, they're not even employees, they're professionals who work just like you, Joe and Danielle, is they see that, oh, actually, this is a person. This is a person who's gone through a different journey, but they got and our hope with that is also to inspire those people to go, our young people to see actually that there's a journey and someone's done it, and that doesn't seem too difficult for me to follow, should I wish to go down that route. So we found quite useful. We get great feedback from the employers, and we've had some students who have secured sort of summer internships and things like that. So and yeah, we've done it twice. Students ask me, when's the next one? We want to come across it. So Emily, if that's something that maybe that you can do in your school, we find employers like yeah, exactly, and employers and professionals like Joe and Danielle, they are so keen to get involved. And this is kind of a message to teachers who are listening, is that the opportunities are out there. All you've got to do is ask, and you'll be faced with lovely professionals like Joe and Danielle, who'll be more than happy to, from my experience anyway, to get involved, whatever that project might be.
I think I always found that if I had to, if I was thinking about a careers week or getting businesses in, I did always forget about the parents that were working at the school as well. And it was always going for the big typical companies. I suppose like around here we've got Nationwide, Dyson, going for those bigger companies. And actually by speaking to parents, we had so many different networks that I wouldn't even have thought of. And I got friends to come in who were in like hair and makeup, and actually so many people don't think of that as a career, because I suppose the children know about it quite a lot already. They're already interested, but actually getting them to talk about how do you get into that career? How do you run your own business? So many people are entrepreneurs with it now. It really kind of changed their perspective on a job that they thought they already knew. And I think that for me was really important, that they don't just see the typical careers that people do get in, and they saw the ones that I knew they had an interest in as well.
Yeah, and that's I've put that down, Emily, because that's not something that I haven't done before. But we've got lots of students, and my next thing is going to be tell me what your parents do, and can we invite them in to do a talk? I think that'll be, and again, to add to that relevance thing, because they see these YouTubers talk and they relate to those, but actually if they can relate to those real life experiences of parents oh, your mum or your dad does this, oh, okay, I can have a conversation, and it could sort of spark interest there as well. So yeah, definitely one I'll be hopefully doing in the future.
Yeah, and I think your point actually about these are approachable people. I think when I wrote my letter in, I thought that you'd have to be this amazing artist to work here and really experienced. So when I got a letter back inviting me for an interview, and then when I got the job, I think I cried. I was really young because I just couldn't believe it. I thought, oh, I'm in the job I really want. And actually, the manager that employed me, she was one of the nicest human beings ever. And I'm still actually, she's left the business now, but we're really good friends, we're really close. But she taught me, because, we're talking back in the 90s where I'd had a job before, and it was a bit rough, and the management were a bit harsh, but you sort of accepted it. So when I came into Tussauds and I had this lovely manager that was a human being, but also really talented, she was incredible. And not to name drop, but within the first year we did Spice Girls, and she came up to, there was a few of us that were new, and she said, would you like to paint them? And I was like, yes, okay. Yeah, I would. So we got to work with them. So, being really early in your career doing that was, that was, I wouldn't have expected that when I first wrote my letter in.
Incredible experience painting Spice Girls. Okay, so following on from that, and Joe and Danielle, I'll come back to you. How do you think that your partnerships with school and even the wider community, how do you think that shapes the offer that Madame Tussauds has?
Yeah, so we recently worked with, I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Stadler Stationery, and we did it's called Sketching Stars last year, and where we went out to some schools and asked them to complete a drawing competition with us to draw their future selves. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. Some of the drawings that came back in were so good. They were so full of life. And that allowed us then to go back into the schools themselves, whoever won the competition, and we could bring Madame Tussauds to them, which is a first. We haven't done that before. And so that's been really, really exciting for us. It was amazing to take the studios team out and bring props and bring the calipers and bring the hair rings and stuff that you probably wouldn't see on a day-to-day visit here. So definitely, I think there's something in there about working with partners to bring us out to people who wouldn't necessarily come into us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's building that connection, isn't it? And we're here. We're an attraction. Yes, you can come along to us and have us as an experience. But absolutely, we're coming out to you. We can share that wider, and it's that inspiration that we've spoken about already, inspiring young people to kind of go into different careers and have an understanding that, because I don't think that many young people would understand, go to Madame Tussauds and wouldn't think about the business side of it and what goes on behind the scenes and that creation. And you've spoken about painting Spice Girls and I don't know, do you knit in hair?
Not too far wrong. We call it insertion. We actually use.
That sounds painful.
Sewing needle with it's actually a sewing needle, and we cut the eye in half. So it's quite a basic tool, really. Yeah. Wig knotting is not too far. It actually looks like a crochet hook, so it's a similar kind of movement. So you're not too far away saying knitting.
Aha, good. I know more than I thought.
Yeah. Emily, I'm going to come to you again for this next one, and this is a topic that we teachers get we talk about a lot. We did talk on the previous show, and it's about the Gatsby benchmarks. Now we know that they're set out to help schools and give them guidance on career and what that looks like in secondary schools and then beyond. I'm interested to get your take on how, in your previous role in primary, have you seen that translate in the primary? Because I think sometimes we often see students come to our sixth form and they might not have had that career advice or career sort of support, if you like, from a young age, and kind of linked to that. Do you think it's too early for them to get that experience at that age, or should we wait until they get a bit older for that? So just want to get your thoughts on the Gatsby benchmark and how it might translate into primary.
I don't think there's an awful lot done in primary directly about careers. I think a lot of it is incidental and like if it has happened, which was one of the reasons that I did start doing my own careers week, because I felt like I think it is important in primary. I think it is important they know what's out there, because as soon as you get to secondary, you do all these different subjects. And I think even just having an idea of how they're relevant is really important. I think the easiest things to do, I did research it a little bit because obviously just going into secondary, the Gatsby benchmark wasn't something I'd previously really heard of. But I think the one that's especially important, which is what we're kind of talking about today, like with businesses going into schools, is just encountering employers and employees and sort of knowing what's out there. And I think getting that little bit of personal guidance, almost, like I've got children that are like, oh, I really like art, but I don't think I can ever do anything with that. And just saying, of course you can. There's so many jobs that are out there that are to do with art. And if that's what your passion is and what your interest is, why can't we at 6, 7, 8 tell them that these are the jobs that are available to you? And it does link to the curriculum. And again, I think seeing the importance of the curriculum that they're studying and how that links to future jobs, whether that is art or history or geography, I think that's really important. And how else can we do that without introducing careers to them really early on?
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. And I think I've seen quite recently, the business name skips me, but I think it was in the professional field again. And they were talking to me about how they want to engage with primary schools, and they were asking us advice on that. So I think some businesses are getting used to that. So universities, coincidentally, they know this and they've done it for a long time. I remember when I was really young in primary school, we went to our local university, and at the time I thought, why is this? Now I look back, and I remember in high school I got asked, what do you want to do? And I was like, go to university. To study what? I don't know. And actually university has been tapping into that for a long time, and actually businesses are starting to sort of get on that as well. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there for young at a sort of a younger age. And I think, Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I think we've got something within our college. Someone I remember seeing a lady who was she's been employed, and her role is to get primary schools that are part of our group to engage with employers. I don't know if you've heard much about that, Chris, that you can sort of share on. But yeah, I remember having that conversation in our staff room about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've got someone in place to try and engage schools and work with schools and go in. And schools do contact me all the time and want to get involved in the business world and want some ideas and what have you. I think it's a different setup. They don't have the support necessarily, the support teams within primary schools that they do in secondary, and particularly sixth forms, to careers advisors and things like that. So I think it's very difficult to do that. Emily, I just wanted to ask you a follow-on question, because you were in primary.
Yeah.
When you did those events, what was the reaction from the students and the parents actually?
It was really positive. So when I put out the request to have parents in, I did get quite a few, to be fair. I think we maybe had one every day planned. And then as the first one started, I ended up doing 2 a day. And we had parents, we ended up going into a second week because so many parents wanted to come in and do it. I did a feedback form from the children afterwards, and they all said that it really opened their eyes to other jobs. One boy said he now wanted to look into joining the RAF when he was older. We had children that were like, I didn't know these jobs existed. Like, I'd love to be an architect, or I'd love to work with, I think one of them did want to go and work with Lego at Legoland.
Yeah.
They think that was really a job that they could do.
Yeah, it is.
And I think what I liked the most out of it was showing them that there were jobs. I think when I went to visit Madame Tussauds, one bit that really stood out to me was when you'd put Stormzy and Shakespeare next to each other, because so many children are like, oh, poems, they're not relevant to me. Like they don't have any use in today's society. And I'm like, it's literally what you probably are listening to. You just don't realise. And when I came to visit, that was the one bit that I was like, I wish all my students could see them stood side by side, because it's so relevant and it's so current to their lives. And that, I think, that's what I want to do with the Careers Week with the people that get in, is show them the different ways that they can use all those skills they already have. It's just a way that they don't know. And I think that was what I loved about coming to Madame Tussauds and seeing how you place them so cleverly to show those exact things.
Yeah. Joe, Danielle, do you notice the difference between the age groups? Because obviously you engage with primary, secondary, all sorts of ages. Do you notice an engagement with the primary school students as well, that they are interested in kind of behind the scenes stuff?
It's difficult. It's not really age group that we tend to get in, unfortunately. We are very much secondary. But when the primary schools do visit, they are just in awe. And it's lovely, because they're just taking in, seeing, a recognisable figure such as Mbappe. He's a huge football player, and they recognise him straight from the outset. They see him coming, or Lewis Hamilton, or the royal family. You can see on their faces, they're just in awe that they're so close to these people. Definitely an area we want to tap into more to your point, to start to breed that early culture in careers and how they can grow within our attraction, within our community. But yeah, not an area so much that we would like that we have at the moment, but hopefully one day we're able to grow that area.
Yeah, great. And sticking with you though, Joe and Danielle. So next question there is kind of, obviously, Madame Tussauds, you've spoken about some really iconic moments. You've spoken about the Spice Girls and the cultural change that created, as just an example, and kind of inspirational individuals. We said about Stormzy a second ago, and Shakespeare, and the contrast between the two. How do you think moments of history and culture such as that that Madame Tussauds captures so well, how do you think that can spark ambition or new thinking in students?
Interesting.
Yeah, so we were talking particularly about this question, because there's so many moments of history within this building. You could walk through and spot anybody, and we would know it as adults. But I think there's a couple that stick out. One is strikingly, we're lucky to have one of our suffragettes on display, Emily Pankhurst, and she was that female trailblazer, that political activist. She was a massive key figure in helping women get equal rights and equal voting. And she's there in front of our Downing Street set, on her chair with her placard, like full on, ready to go, really, really embracing what she is. And she stands out wearing her lovely purple jacket, and just that is a moment there that I think if you looked at it, you'd appreciate just how significant that is, especially for women. It's amazing to see. Yeah. And then on the flip of that, I think, our little secret that we have is that we do have a ride here, the Spirit of London. And that ride can take you through the history of London to modern day. And you go through and you see the likes of Shakespeare, you see London Burning, you see the Blitz and Queen Victoria and things like that. And again, that just broadens that there's so much history here, and having those kind of immersive sets, it really sinks into how much we've got here, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. The ride's a real Easter egg. People don't realise we have it, and then you go on there and you're taken through. It is called the Spirit of London. It's got a beautiful narration, and you get into a black cab, and there's a narration and the music. It's so immersive. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's a real. I know when my son comes, so quite often during, especially the 6 weeks holiday, we have to bring our children to work. And every time he comes, Mum, can we go on the ride? He's year 6 actually. Can we go on the ride? Okay, we're going on the ride.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I had no idea it was there when I went to visit either.
Yeah.
When I came with my friend and her daughter, we walked around and we were like, oh my gosh, we can't believe this huge ride is inside. And we had no idea before we went. And it was incredible, really interesting.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ride.
Yeah. And I think working in education, sometimes you just need that little spark. They might not realise it, but that little spark of interest that you can build on. And you say about the kind of history of London and going through that, and then bring that into the lessons. And it's just that little spark of interest that they can relate to. And I think that's really important to have that experience. And that's kind of why we do it, I suppose. Why we do these trips and these experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like figures, whether they're celebrities or sports personnel, whoever they might be, they do play a key role in all of our lives from young age all the way through. And I think one of the things that this conversation sort of got me thinking about was when we were younger and when we were in schools, historical figures were sort of not all we had, but they were the forefront of what happened. Like nowadays, with the internet, these figures are much more prominent. The sort of the present or the modern, if you like, figures are so prominent in our students and young people's lives that sometimes historical figures can get forgotten. And I would love to see Shakespeare and Stormzy together, because I know, like, for a fact how well that's going to go down with some of our students who I don't know whether I agree with this, but they might see Stormzy as the Shakespeare of our time, but actually seeing Shakespeare and actually making that connection of, why do I care about Shakespeare? Well, this is why, because he was so culturally significant, and this is what he did in times when maybe people didn't appreciate his art as much as they should have done. So actually making those connections with the real life figures that they see today, and seeing that someone has done that in the past, and this is what they've done, and actually using them as a role model to say, you know. And you mentioned the suffragettes and these iconic people who did sort of break the mold and went sort of above and beyond to achieve what they wanted to achieve. And I think one of the things I see with young people quite a lot is they think that they see all these things, but they have this part of them where they think, I don't know if I could do that, because that seems really scary, that seems really unattainable. But actually, if we can tell them these stories and show them, more importantly, when we if students come to Tussauds and they see these people in almost the flesh, as close as they can get to it, I think that might be a great way for them to be inspired and think that the greatness they have within them, and hopefully bring that out.
Yeah, certainly. And one of our newer figures is Mary Earps, actually, isn't it? So we were really excited when we worked with Mary. And we did get a lot of interest from young girls, especially, didn't we?
It was lovely.
And at the, I think we could talk about it, but the launch, we had a lot of young girls in their kits, which was really, really lovely. And they got to meet Mary. So, really great moment.
Amazing.
Okay, moving on to the next bit then, Emily. This is another one for you, and you as well, Chris. And this is sort of I want to get both of your opinions on this. So we know many young people have strong, and we've talked about it quite a lot on this show already, they have quite strong career stereotypes where they think, you know, if you want to be this particular, I don't want to repeat the stereotypes, but you know, they exist, that they think, if you want to be this career, you have to be this particular gender or this particular age. And we as teachers do have that sort of challenge of making sure that we can challenge these stereotypes. What role do you think us as teachers, and also experiences like Tussauds, what role could that have in challenging the stereotypes, so that students can break away from those and think, do you know what, I can go into any career I want, because it's not just this particular look person that could do that?
I think it's difficult, because I think as long as you need to show the careers and not have the stereotypes in them yourself. So, for example, again, talking about planning a careers week, you need to try and make sure that you have that range of people that are coming in. And to have that, you have to have that wealth of people that you can reach on yourself. For example, whenever we were talking about having a doctor or a dentist in, I think they did all assume I meant a man straight away. They were like, oh, when is he coming? I was like, well, if they do come, it will be a girl, because it's one of my friends, and she is a doctor. But I think it's about having that sort of community that you can draw on, which is, as you said earlier, having the networking, having the building of those businesses and those links with businesses that you can bring in. I think that's really important. When we went to look around Tussauds as well, what I loved is there was the variety of the figures that were there. So I love that Mary Earps was put in there, because again, football, it's getting more relevant for girls now, but it's still predominantly boys. So having that figure there was amazing to see. I think having someone like Stormzy, who's come from the background that he has, and he's now got, I want to say it's Cambridge or Oxford, isn't it, that he sponsors to go to, and being able to have those conversations, even talking about people like Churchill and how in the past, oh, look, it was all, you know, older white men who were prime minister, and now look at where we've come to. I think seeing the historical figures, we were able to open up those conversations as well of what exists now. So by looking at the stereotype, can we find examples of how that's changed? I think that was something that we looked at, but mostly it's having those examples to give people, isn't it, to challenge the stereotypes.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think it's bringing that into everyday education. So with experiences like Madame Tussauds, but also we're teaching them on a day-to-day basis. And if you look through textbooks, they are middle-aged white men. So all the examples that we have of famous businessmen and economists that we have to talk about in economics and things like that, and that there isn't that representation, is there, amongst certain groups? So it's responsibility of businesses of experience, such as Madame Tussauds, to do it so well, and teachers and in education to show representation, to show that it does exist, and if it doesn't exist, let's change it, and providing those experiences to actually you could be the person that changed it. We had spoken about several different people in Madame Tussauds that you've represented there who have changed the scene. So the current lionesses, as we call them, that they're changing the scene, aren't they? They're changing the scene in football, and we've seen that throughout history. So that's what we need to be doing, is inspiring that next generation, and change can happen if it's not already happening in an industry. So part of my wider department, I also manage computer science, and that's predominantly male dominated world. And some of the work we're trying to do at the moment is go, why is that? Why aren't we having females that are kind of represented in that industry? Why aren't we having girls actually study the computer science and an IT? Why aren't they coming through? So yeah, absolutely, we need to make sure that we're representing, that we've got that in place as well.
Yeah, and something I want to add as well is we have these stereotypes in our heads as well as teachers. I caught myself in one of my lessons where I was referring to an entrepreneur, and then we're talking about if they did this, it would lead to profit. And instead of saying they, I said he, and I caught myself in the moment saying he, and I thought, well, hang on a minute, that's a stereotype that I've got in my head, and I know full well that an entrepreneur cannot just be a male. And actually, in that moment, I caught myself, and I may now every time, like I plan any of my lessons, I make sure that it's not just a he. Like and in our classroom, so in my classroom, we've got a wall of inspirational individuals, and the wall is just people from all backgrounds who've studied maybe economics or business and gone on to do any great things. So I think one thing that it's uncomfortable to sort of admit that I have this stereotype in my head, but actually if I can challenge it myself and do it in a way that students see, actually we do have these stereotypes, and it's not okay to have these stereotypes because it blocks us and it limits us on what we can and can't do. So I just wanted to share that moment, because I distinctly remember, luckily none of the students picked up on it, because some of the key 9 ones would have gone, hang on, he, what do you mean he? a little bit more awkward. And actually one other thing, we had speakers coming from the Bank of England to our school, and the first one was a sort of in his 40s young white man, and the second one that we had was a more senior figure who was a female who had gone through all the ranks in America, then come to the UK and built a career. So luckily we had the opportunity to show both. So it's not always possible, but bringing that in and the stories of, doesn't matter what background you're from, as long as you want to achieve greatness. We live in a world, luckily, where we can support as educators those young people and give them the opportunities for them to do great things.
Great. So just as a reminder, we are this is the Thursday Twilight Show with Chris and Mo. We're joined today by Joe and Danielle from Madame Tussauds, and Emily, who's a teacher and has done quite a lot of work with kind of careers and Gatsby benchmarks and things like that. So talking today about how we can work with businesses like experiences like Tussauds to engage students and work in education as well. Fun question for this one, Joe and Danielle. I'm going to come to you. So, if you were to be immortalised as at Madame Tussauds or something you've achieved, what would you want it to be and why?
Well, see,
we talked
about this. I said, all my ones are really boring compared to Joe's, so I'm going to have to sit here and think again about it.
It depends, doesn't it? I think because I guess my background, I came from a small suburb in Derby where, I remember, and I think we've talked about this before, when I went for my careers interview, what would it be the equivalent of year 9 maybe? And I said I would like to be a makeup artist, and it was can't do that. That doesn't exist. But you could be a beautician. And I remember sitting there thinking, can't I? Okay. So, and it was a bit harder then because there weren't makeup courses. So I don't know. Part of me thinks, maybe just for what I've achieved. But we did talk about this earlier.
We did,
and we were talking about key moments and. Sounds like another name drop, but working with One Direction was pretty special. So we worked very closely with them, very closely. So that was really special. But I think maybe the most recent one was Kylian Mbappe, and he shared a photo on his Instagram. So maybe we could recreate the photo of me and Kylian on his Instagram page, and that could be...
That's your moment. Okay, I'll see it.
I'm going to have to go and look at that. I'm going to have to go and find that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's hard because you don't want to go, it's all about me. It's not, but...
That's amazing. It's recognition that he loved your work so much. He reposted that picture. I think it's great.
Yeah. Absolutely. Danielle, your go.
Oh no, my boring ones, because I just operate.
And do it very well.
It's a bit of what you guys were alluding to about, breaking stereotypes and role models and things. And I think, particularly myself, my role, it's quite a male-dominated industry. You don't really hear a lot of female head of operations. We're moulding that and we're changing that. But I think there was one moment where I actually got a phone call from my son's school. I think I've told you this before. He was in year 2 and she said, I've got to call you. He's just said something in class. And you instantly think, oh, Lord, what have you said? I'm really panicking. Yeah. And he said, she said, we were talking about careers and it was a flash. They did a career in September and then they did it at the end of the year in July. And in September, he said he wanted to work in Tesco's. Great, that's fine if you get to work in Tesco's, love that. And then at the start of the year, at the end of the year in July, she said, Leo said in front of the whole class, I want to be like my mum, I want to be a boss. And I thought, if anything, I've done it right. And I remember welling up, I've done everything right. Lovely. Then if Leo can turn around and say that in front of his class in year 2, then I think I've nailed it. So I think that probably is it for me. That's my moment.
Danielle, you're wrong. That's really cool. Absolutely. Brilliant, and that would be incredible to have both of those immortalized, one being called a boss and one with Kylian Mbappe as well. So incredible stuff. And we just have flash up, we've got 500 live viewers, so thanks ever so much for everyone tuning in and tuning in live, and also you can see it after the show as well. So great stuff, 500 live viewers, all seeing our faces.
Great. I don't know. This isn't something I don't know if you ever thought about, but either of you, Chris or Emily, do you have a moment? If say we were to ask you, I thought Joe and Danielle would come in with it because now they've shared theirs. But is there a moment that you have in your maybe teaching career or anything else like that you think?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So if we came to you and we said, right, we want to immortalise you in our attraction.
Yeah. What's yours? What's your moment?
What would be your moment, and which zone? I guess.
Yeah.
You might not. Zones, but we have culture zone, awards,
fashion.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, I've got one. I'll share mine, Chris, and then
give us something.
I don't know how this would picture, but so I'm quite recent. I'm quite new to teaching, and I've had careers in marketing and things like that in the past, and I've always found myself trying to find a career that gave me the fulfillment that my other jobs didn't. And this year, my first year of year 13s have left, so I taught from year 12 all the way to year 13, and one of my students came up to me before she left, and she said to me, the conversation that we had last year, and we had loads of conversations. So I was like, okay, which one? She said, I was ready to hand in my sort of letter to say I'm leaving college. And I had a conversation with her and said, somehow I managed to talk her out of it. And she said, because you've done that, now I've got my qualification. Now I'm going on to do something I wouldn't have even dreamed of doing, because last year I was done. And actually for me I know these two will have loads of stories like this, but because it's my first time of having that conversation, it really touched home, and it really sort of strung a chord that I didn't know I had, where they said to me, do you know what? I would have left and I probably would have gone and done this job, and I probably would have struggled a lot. And because of the conversation that we had, and because the word that she used was that I inspired her to stay, and she's glad that she did. And to me, I won't forget that. And that will be the thing to remind me on those hard days where Chris is asking me 50 things to do. I'll remember that the reason why I'm doing this, he doesn't, by the way, I'm just winding him up. But yeah, so I'll remember the reason why I wake up every day and go to work is for those moments. So I don't know what zone that will fit into, Joe, if there is a zone for that, but that's one that I would probably say.
I think we go for the award stage. That deserves an award.
That does deserve an award. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay.
Emily, you ready?
Right, you two, have you had one?
I feel like mine would be really boring, because I think for me, I always wanted to be a teacher. Like, I genuinely didn't really ever want to be anything else. I did watch Time Team religiously when I was younger, so maybe for a couple of months wanted to be an archaeologist, until I realised you had to do it in the rain. But other than that, I only ever wanted to be a teacher. So I think for me, my biggest achievement is not just becoming a teacher, but like becoming one that I, again, Mo, like you've said, one that makes a difference every day. And I genuinely think that's one of my biggest achievements, is like reaching the goal I've had since I was 4, and actually, like, I think being good at it. Hopefully other people would agree.
Yeah.
I think that would be it, actually, just being good at what I've always wanted to do.
I think that deserves fame.
Yeah,
like you're in fame. You're fame. You're okay. You can go in there.
I think mine, I've been teaching for, 20 odd years now. I know I don't look old enough, but yeah, I've had many stories like that about students that have come back years later, and they've said about the education experience that they've had. I think for me though, we once did a talent show at school, and me and a colleague of mine, we were Run DMC. So there I was doing the breakdancing to like that in high-vis leggings and top with a ghetto blaster, an old school 80s ghetto blaster on the shoulder, breakdancing in front of an assembly of school kids, so they're all from year 7 to 13, and I won the talent competition with the PE teacher that I did it with at the time. So yeah, if you could immortalize me in wax by having me with a ghetto blaster dressed in high-vis clothes, that'd be wonderful.
So that's music.
That's music. You're on the stage. You're taking front and centre. Yeah. I've got the pose in my head already.
Yeah. And the great thing is you've written the brief, so you've done your costume for us. We don't need to do any research.
A bit of health and safety about the pose, maybe, but we can get that covered off. We'll be okay.
If there was a video, Chris, I think we'd all enjoy seeing that. So if
there is a video, it was posted online a few years ago. You won't find it. I know exactly where it is, and you don't. So yeah, that's never going to be seen.
Right. Yeah, thank you for those answers. I think yeah, we've got some work for you, Joe. You might not have any work for my one, but yeah, there's some work. So just to wrap things up, really, we're coming towards the end of the show, and I just want to get any final thoughts and any advice that anyone has, and I'm going to bring the whole group into this. And what advice you would have for students who might feel like they're not unsure, which I think from my experience is the majority of our students who are not sure about their future, and also teachers who might want to engage with organisations like Tussauds. What advice would you give them so that they can have that experience and start to explore their options?
I think what I would say to any students, like, it's okay to fail. If you think you're going to go one direction, you can absolutely, sorry, I just coined your phrase, apologies. If you're going to go in a different direction, you can. You know, I chose to go to university and it didn't work out for me. It wasn't the right career, and I fell in love with the Merlin industry as such. So you can fail, you can make decisions, you can choose different strands, because ultimately you'll get to wherever you're going to go to soon. And I think if I could speak to any teachers, it would be like, just come here and see the beauty of the history of the building and interact with us and see what we can offer you. It's not just figures in a museum. There's so much more here that I think you'd really get out of having a day trip to us.
Yeah. And I think as a career, I think big really, because, I was told that, it didn't exist. But I'm the sort of person, if somebody tells me no, then I'm like, right, I'll find a way around it, even at a young age. And I had lots of barriers to overcome actually to get where I am now. But it's just kind of, if you really believe in what you want to do, it's almost manifesting it actually. But if you really believe in what you want to do, but also it's just about working hard. And actually I went above and beyond quite a lot in my early days, but that was more because I was passionate about what I did. So I would put in the extra hours, but I just loved what I did. But I also knew that when I joined as a hair inserter, I knew I wanted to be a leader. And actually what's interesting is when I was 4, I remember I must have been maybe a reception year 1, we had to draw a picture of what our future self, what do we want to be? And I put a teacher. And I love teaching, so I've done my teaching adult petals, I think it was called, 15 years ago. So I have taught at LCF, and I love new people coming in and teaching them. So I think just I guess don't be afraid as well. It is hard. It's, if you think, gosh, I've got to speak to somebody. I remember calling the National Theatre and being absolutely petrified to speak to somebody, but I did it. But always ask questions as well, and just be persistent. I think, especially in, I guess, our industry, because we are busy, we might not see the email, so re-email. And I know in the film industry, you've got to be persistent as well. So. Yeah. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. It takes one application to work here, and you never know, you might end up on Mbappe's Instagram page, or I'm going to name dropped. We could end up on Michael Bublé's Instagram page. That made his Instagram page. But it's an amazing industry. We're very, very lucky, and I think it's just like what you said. Just one email doesn't hurt. Just to get in contact with us and see what we can do for you.
Emily.
I think, Joe's already said the word I was thinking of, passion. I think it's just explaining to children that you've got to pick something that you're really passionate about, and that it's not just going to be that job for you. It's going to be something that you genuinely enjoy and genuinely want to do. And I think for most children or young people, that's where choosing a career starts from. It's saying, right, I really love doing this. I really love this activity, this hobby, this subject, and then sort of building on it from there. I think that would be my advice to anybody asking about careers.
Yeah, great. Okay, that brings us pretty much to the end of the show. Joe, Danielle, Emily, thanks so much for your time this evening. Really useful information there, and great to share your experiences and some advice for teachers, for students, for whoever, to kind of build the careers and build that experience within education as well. So thanks ever so much for your time. Mo, as always, been a pleasure as well.
Yeah, thank you all. Really, really insightful, and hopefully those listeners, I think last time we checked there was over 500. You've picked up something from today's talk, whether you're a student or a teacher, that you can take away and have a think about and research. And my quick final thought, Chris, is that find your passion, but also don't be scared to change that, because sometimes it changes. I thought I never wanted to be a teacher. I finished my last day of school and I was celebrating, and actually I'm now a teacher and I found my passion. So don't be afraid to, try different things out. And I think the key is go and explore, find your passion, and then you'll find that. And I remember this quote from a gentleman when I was younger: if you find your passion at work, then you won't work a single day in your life. So find what that is, and work hard for it.
Excellent. And that's the end of the show. Thanks ever so much for your time, everyone. Speak soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.